In engaging with contemplative prayer and this passive way of being, I felt it benefited me so much that I wanted to be able to learn to teach this to other people.
Stephanie enrolled in training programs referred to as spiritual formation, a curriculum based on ancient monastic practices with contemplative prayer as the foundation.
They advertise on their website that it's rooted in Christian tradition. When I get into the classroom, I'm in there with Wiccans and Satan worshipers and atheists, Buddhists, you name it, they were there.
Their studies included a form of Bible study called Lectio Divina, or divine reading, the goal of which is to prepare the mental faculties for union with God.
Lectio is a marvelous means because it tries to prepare all the faculties for union with God.
Union with God, or becoming one with God in an altered state, supposedly taps into the true self, which they say is the core goodness in every person, which is immortal and not separate from God. Catholic monk Thomas Keating leaves no doubt what mystics believe about the nature of man. God and our true self are not separate. Though we are not God, God and our true self are the same thing. Paul Netter is a well-known Catholic author, student of Buddhism, and former student of Jesuit theologian Karl Rahner. The unity between what I call God and myself is not just a case of God acting in me, but me being God. What Stephanie didn't know at that time is that Christian mysticism eventually requires a reinterpretation of the Bible.
What we're talking about is beyond human concept and therefore beyond human language. That means all the language that we hear from the Bible or in sermons, engage it, but don't take it literally.
Oh, well, he certainly isn't upset because someone bit into an apple. You understand? But I understand how you have to teach the mythic stories, but most people don't know how to understand sacred texts. They really don't.
Listen to the leading voices of this post-Vatican II movement describe what they say is true reality about creation, Jesus Christ, and the nature of man.
Most of us have not been taught how to distinguish Jesus from Christ.
We so lumped them together, and we lost the massive truth. In fact, what we lost was a basis for a universal religion, a natural religion. Christ is not an individual. Christ is a collective.
In fact, most Christians think it's his last name. They operate as if Christ is his last name, when in fact it's a description of his function in history. We know the word means the anointed one, and that anointing began, we believe, with the first incarnation, right? The first incarnation, some billions of years ago, we now call the Big Bang, when God decided to show God's self. You want to see what I'm like? Voila, here it is.
In everything visible your eyes have ever seen. What else could it be but the body of God?
As Teilhard de Chardin taught in his day, every particle is filled with Christ. And we're just trillions of them put together with some kind of order by somebody.
This is the definition of panentheism, a Christianized form of pantheism or animism, where all of creation is penetrated with God's essence, which makes everything divine and worthy of worship.
And bow to them.
Even the rocks and the trees.
My own father, St. Francis, who's the first recorded person to speak of brother sun, sister moon, sister fire, brother water. It's all sacred.
While watching people on the streets, Catholic monk Thomas Merton had an epiphany. If only they could all see themselves as they really are. I suppose the big problem would be that we would fall down and worship each other.
The true mystic wants to kneel and kiss the ground every day. He lives, she lives in a sacred universe.
We're growing up in God, and evolution is the birth canal into divine life itself.
And the second coming of Christ is you, and the second coming of Christ is still happening. It's not one event, it's the rest of history.
Panentheism can be more clearly understood by one of its synonyms, incarnation.
The first incarnation is creation. The personal incarnation happened 2,000 years ago, we believe as Christians, which is Jesus.
He woke up fully to his divine consciousness, to the divine spirit that was given in his very being. And we are called to do the same. So Jesus saves by revealing rather than by fixing. In other words, he doesn't have to fix a rift between God and humanity brought about by sin. Rather, he reveals that there's no rift.
Jesus is fully human and fully divine at the same time. Impossible. And the price we paid for that is most of us don't realize we are human and divine at the same time.
Jesus is the symbol of what human beings really are, an expression of the non-dualistic unity between divinity and humanity.
Buddhism has enabled me to come to a more non-dualistic understanding of and experience of God, a more unitive experience of the divine. So whatever God is, it's not out there, outside, other. It is what you are.
The vast majority of Western Christians, Catholic and Protestant, still think of God as out there because they have not had any inner experience.
The mystical, contemplative, non-dual mind. And I use those three words interchangeably. They are the same thing.
It's not just two. There's a communing, a fusing, where you become aware of the very presence of God in you and as you.
You can't see God because when you are God, there's nothing to see. So consciousness is perhaps all there is, but it's not self-consciousness. It's God manifesting himself, herself, or itself.
We're not individuals.
We, we, or it, are all aspects of the same reality. You and the other are one. Always have been, always will be. You just think that you aren't. And it's this sense of separation from God that is the radical root of all evil. So it's this habit of thinking we're not with God that has to be overcome. And since that's deep-seated, it takes a little time.
We got a lot of unlearning to do. And that's why we teach contemplation, because contemplation is mostly unlearning.
So it's not an external belief system that you believe something.
It's not believing in dogmas or going to church or following some moral commandment.
But a practice, there's nothing to believe. You just go and you know it to be true for yourself.
What could possibly go wrong with experiencing the apparent truth of non-duality, where you don't exist and everything in the physical realm is just an illusion? In his groundbreaking book, Zen at War, Zen priest and historian Brian Victoria shows how, during World War II, the Japanese military used Zen ideas and meditation techniques with the support of Zen Buddhist leaders. Soldiers learned how to attain enlightenment, or the no-self, a non-dual reality where neither they nor the enemy exist. And no one gets killed. This warrior spirit was inspired for centuries by the samurai, who also practiced Zen Buddhism. In the 1600s, Takuan, a famous Zen master, wrote, "The uplifted sword has no will of its own. It is all emptiness. The man who is about to be struck down is also of emptiness. The striking man is not a man." In the book Zen at War, the author quotes Lieutenant Colonel Sugimoto Goro, a huge influencer of Japan's youth during World War II. "The greatest mission is to promote an awareness of the non-existence of the self. Through my practice of Zen, I am able to get rid of my ego. Life and death are identical. Warriors who sacrifice their lives for the Emperor will not die." Just before their final missions, kamikaze suicide pilots were told that they would meet again at Yasukuni Shrine, the permanent residence of Japan's warrior ancestors who died fighting for the Emperor. This is the Yasukuni Shrine, a Shinto shrine in Tokyo, honoring over 2 million people. Shinto is the oldest religion in Japan, which arose out of the beliefs and practices of shamanism. During and after World War II, the Shinto priests performed rites to transform the war dead into gods.
日本のために尊い命を犠牲にされたご英霊に対し尊崇の念を表し
So how does the belief in non-duality, the no-self, coexist with ancestor worship? The answer is ancient shamanism. In her book, The Shamanic Bones of Zen, Zen priest Earthlyn Manuel states that voodoo and Zen are the same thing because they are rooted in shamanism, where ancestors are everything in nature and can be communicated with, including dead people. Buddhism was a path where I found myself communing with ancestors and being guided by them every day. Chanting and meditating opened up a channel between me and the voice of the earth.
This work is both ancestral work and divine work. We become very intimate with the spirits that we call on regularly.
I believe so many of them work through us. Why would we not honor the people who have been stolen from us and are asking for us to fight for them.
If you do not know what libations are in African tradition, they are a pouring of a liquid as a deity to honor, commemorate.
This movement is much more than a racial and social justice movement. At its core, it's a spiritual movement.
For Breonna Taylor! Breonna Taylor! Ashe! Ashe!
When we say the names, that you kind of invoke that spirit, and then those spirits actually become present with you.
You channel the spirit of Malcolm.
The speech is over. I'm gonna call cut. But he keeps going.
And the house is going to be destroyed. I said the house is going to be destroyed. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
And he kept going for another 5 minutes, till finally the film ran out of the magazine. And the stuff that he said was better than Malcolm's words. He prepared a year for that role. Denzel knew he had to be in a space spiritually where Malcolm come in his vessel.
I would just pray every morning, before I came out of that trailer, like, Malcolm, come on, because it's not for me, right? It's for him and for those, hopefully, that he affected. Another one of those characters, but especially that scene where I just went to prayer. I just called on all the spirits of all those who have been beaten. Not that I represent them, and some people might think it's wacky, but that's all I did. I just said, come on with me. I just want to go out here and represent y'all in some kind of way.
Our ancestors are out there.
Right.
And if you're open, we could use that.
If there's anything I can say to actors, that's what's worked for me more than anything else.
I could feel that even that Buddhism itself was almost a blanket, even though it came from Buddha, but how it got transmitted, it was a blanket with a lot of things underneath it. And I think people will, if they understand the shamanism and within the Buddha, where it came from, and all the indigenous cultures that contributed, if not created, some of what we're practicing, it will bring it into the context of the earth and seeing ourselves as earth, as nature, and understanding life. So shamanism, they know that. Shamans know that.
But the fingers lead to the center of the palm, and the various religions on their deepest level lead to the center of reality, where they are one, but they're different expressions of that reality.
Shamanism is not a religion. Rather, it's been described by religious historian and author Mircea Eliade as the mysticism within each religion. It traditionally involves going into altered states of consciousness, and through that state, speaking to deities on behalf of one's community. The #1 grossing film of all time is Avatar, which initiates viewers into the beliefs and practices of shamanism, the original mystics.
A2 Khan. He's the clan leader, but she's the spiritual leader, like a shaman.
That is Mother. She is Sakik, the one who interprets the will of Ewa.
So who's this Ewa? Who's Ewa? Only their deity. Their goddess made up of all living things, everything they know.
The Tree of Souls. It's their most sacred place.
This is a place for prayers to be heard, and sometimes answered. The Tree of Voices. The voices of our ancestors.
I can hear them.
They live, Sheikh. Within Ewa.
The Great Mother may choose to save all that she is in this body.
I'm with her, Drake. She's real.
Grace. 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 Grace.
Zen priest Earthland Manuel states, "All spiritual and religious paths are ancestral. We are being led to an alignment with the unseen. I am writing from a place deeper than my rational thoughts."
And every time I write a book, I go, oh my, what have I written? Because it's coming from someplace. So then I have to study what I've written myself. It's phenomenal, what comes through.
Shamans are awakened ones who can guide others to awakening.
You can experience freedom, like right now in this moment, like in the moment, without the dogma, even if you don't even know what it is. You can invite it until it shows itself.
But there's another question. How can someone be enlightened and still do violent acts? Isn't enlightenment supposed to be the highest pinnacle of spiritual development? The famous Zen master D.T. Suzuki admitted that enlightenment alone is not enough. Enlightenment in itself is just a state of being and can't tell right from wrong. The mindfulness movement is a secularized version of Zen Buddhism that has permeated U.S. businesses and schools.
This is a time of day that we don't need to change anything. We don't have to fix anything. We can just relax with what's going on.
Heavily promoted by celebrities like Goldie Hawn.
You can start training them very young, and they really love it. That's the other thing. Kids take to it like a duck to water. What we want to build is objectivity. Objectivity, interestingly enough, is looking at something with no designs, but you become a witness.
According to the authors of The Buddha Pill, there are only two root beliefs of mindfulness meditation. What is true and perfect lies within, and that your inner experience is fundamentally true. How is this possible when the most famous teacher of Zen Buddhism, from which mindfulness was derived, admitted that there is no basis of morality in an altered state of consciousness?
This is reality. If you look right over there, yes, everything is one. You have nothing to do with it. I am one with what I am. I can't tell you about it. If you can't see it, then you'll just never know it. I feel sorry for you.
Suddenly you notice that there aren't these separations. That's what death is going to be like. And oh, what fun it would be.
Since 2000, Johns Hopkins has been researching the effects of psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms. One study of 36 volunteers revealed that a single dose could change a person's entire view of reality. Over 2/3 of the participants reported that it was either their number one or top 5 most significant spiritual experiences, and they often described aspects related to a sense of unity, or unity of all things. In 2021, Johns Hopkins received the first federal grant for psychedelic research in over 50 years, joining the growing numbers who believe that psychedelics could hold promise for curing depression, anxiety, addictions, and PTSD.
I think generally people should be open to psychedelics.
Elon Musk tweeted, "I've talked to many more people who were helped by psychedelics and ketamine than antidepressants and amphetamines."
As the new generation gets into political power, I think we will see greater receptivity to the benefits of psychedelics.
But why in this secular research are so many experiencing what they believe are spiritual answers to the meaning of life? Not everyone is convinced yet.
I mean, Rick Strassman, he terrified himself right out of the DMT research, as far as I could tell, because all his subjects came back and said, well, you know, I went somewhere else and saw aliens. It's like, well, it was a dream. No, sorry. Wasn't a dream, was way more real than any dream. In fact, it was actually more real than life. We don't know what to do with that.
In the meantime, psychedelic tourism is becoming mainstream.
You have to trust it, and you have to trust yourself enough to let go, to just surrender.
Nothing glamorous about it. It's all a part of sort of making you vulnerable so that you surrender to the experience.
My intention the first night going in was, I want to feel what pure love feels like. Surrendering to any of the lessons that needed to come through.
The Green Bay Packers quarterback talked about traveling to Peru on an ayahuasca retreat.
The ayahuasca is usually described as a grandmother spirit, and I met her and walked with her through past, present, and future lives.
Ayahuasca is a plant-based psychedelic that is consumed like a tea. The active ingredient in ayahuasca, known as DMT, is illegal in the United States.
I had a magical experience with the sensation of feeling 100 different hands on my body, imparting a blessing from what seemed to be my ancestors.
So I went down there, did the whole ceremony, and he explained the ayahuasca plant. You think about what you'd like to have healed, and you blow into it. And the shaman said, "What's going on?" He said, "Do you see the geometric shapes?" I said, "Yes." He said, "If you really focus in on the emptiness between the lines," I just like astral traveled into blackness. I saw my mom. I saw my brother John.
The shaman asks every participant to say their intention. Why are you here? What is it that you want these spirits to help you with? I asked for my mom, and Vala asked for the truth.
It looked like everyone had a good experience, but for me it was completely dark. Cold. I felt I was scared. But shaman told me, this is your first time. Tomorrow will be better. They told Samuel that I am the child of darkness and we need to separate. I did not understood. Samuel is my only friend.
So the other way, those spirits, they won my trust, my full trust, is what it looked like my dead mother. And she talks like her, she acts like her, and...
My mother came down in a spaceship. She knows my soul.
So when I asked her about who I am, she said, of course. She's around me. Her wings are everywhere. She protects me every day, every day.
My mother was my everything. So if my mother is telling me something, of course I will do, because I know she only wants what's the best for me.
Ayahuasca is very intelligent. I was able to tap into that. My sister had I saw as beginning stage of breast cancer in her left breast. And I texted her that. And it was amazing that she's been to the doctor. Like, there was a health thing, possibly a big health thing. It keeps reconfirming the message of that I can see visions, that it's real. And it's just like, I love that. I love channeling that.
So you have great ocean views. The downside is you have the freeway in between, so you're not on the beach side.
And also these spirits were delivering. The last home I showed was a price range that was above and beyond what I normally do. It was a home in Malibu for $50 million. So I do about 12 ayahuasca experiences, and most of them were the same. Mine were, you know, my mother would come through, she would tell me how much she loved me, how great it is on the other side. My understanding was my mother died, and now she's with these spirits. They're helping me because she cares so much about me.
The last ayahuasca ceremony that Samuel and Vala attended was at Mount Shasta in Northern California.
The ceremonies are always done 2 nights in a row, Friday night and Saturday night. So we do our Friday night ceremony. I remember asking Vala, I said, how was your Friday night? And she was sad, she was crying, she had really terrible anxiety. She says, I don't know what to do with it. I said, how come this ayahuasca that seems to be able to help everyone, except for her? And about 20 minutes into the ceremony, Vala started making noise, and I just felt she's disturbing everyone's journey, because everyone's on this like inner journey. And the shaman goes over to her to help her because she's not feeling well, and he's using a musical instrument. What he's doing, actually, he's calling on these spirits, and Vala tells him, stop this music, and he won't stop. And she says, stop it. He will not stop. Vala grabs the instrument from him, breaks it in two, and starts beating the shaman with it. I am in shock. These spirits are speaking words into my thoughts, and they're saying, look, what is it that we told you? She cannot be trusted. She's a child of darkness. She hit the shaman, and who knows what else she's gonna do.
Jesuit priest William Johnston states, psychedelic drugs seem to introduce people to a level of psychic life that has something in common with Zen and mysticism.
There's nothing to believe. There's nothing to believe. You just go and you know it to be true for yourself.
So whatever God is, it's not out there, outside, other. It is what you are.
Elvis's favorite book says the same thing.
I, as the Christ, dwell in all men, and am their one and only self. We could not possibly be separated, for I am you.
Christ is not an individual. Christ is a collective.
The same teaching of the forerunner of the New Age.
Christ is no man, but the divine principle in every human being.
But what if the Bible is true? What if Christ is a person who created the universe, who became a man on a rescue mission, who gave accurate predictions long in advance so we would know that he is God and we are not?